How to make any woman miss you so badly, even if she's not interested, psychology tricks. Absence sharpens love, presence strengthens it. Thomas Fuller. Here's a truth most men don't hear until much later in life, and yes, it can sting at first. You cannot make a woman miss you by chasing her. You can't talk her into desire, explain your way into attraction, or earn interest by trying harder. Attraction doesn't work like a negotiation. The more you push for it, the faster it slips away. That probably clashes with what you were taught. Many men believe that when a woman isn't interested, the answer is more effort, more messages, more availability, more proof of value. But in real life, that approach doesn't create longing. It slowly suffocates it. Here's the part most people never say out loud. The men women miss the most are rarely the men who try to be missed. They are the men who live full, grounded lives, men who create emotional contrast, mystery, and space without forcing it. And let's be clear, this is not about manipulation. It's not about games, tactics, or pretending to be someone you're not. This is about understanding how attraction actually functions, especially when interest is low, uncertain, or fading. Because another uncomfortable truth is this: women don't miss men because of logic. They miss men because of emotional impact. And emotional impact is not built through chasing. It's built through self-control, unpredictability, and a calm sense of self. Think about it for a moment. Have you ever noticed that when you pull back, just a little, something shifts? Suddenly she checks your stories. She responds faster. She asks questions she never asked before. Why does that happen? Because when you're no longer constantly present, her mind fills in the silence, and the human mind hates unfinished emotional stories. This is where many men go wrong. They think, if she's unsure, I should show her more of who I am. But attraction grows in the space between interactions, not inside constant contact. If she already knows you'll always be there, always waiting, always available, there's nothing for her to miss. Here's the core idea you need to remember. Women don't miss attention. They miss how they felt around you. And that feeling doesn't come from being everywhere all the time. It comes from contrast. You are not missed because you stay. You are missed because you leave something emotionally unresolved. This isn't about vanishing or acting cold. It's about stopping the habit of over-explaining your worth. Real confidence isn't loud. It doesn't chase. It doesn't beg to be chosen. Real confidence stands still and lets others respond to it. And here's where this becomes powerful. Even if she says she's not interested right now, interest is not fixed. It's emotional, fluid, and responsive. A woman may say she doesn't feel it, but that doesn't mean she's immune to curiosity, memory, or emotional contrast. It just means nothing has challenged her emotions yet. This doesn't mean you try to change her mind. It means you stop trying to impress. You stop seeking validation. And the moment you do, something subtle but important happens. She notices that you don't need her attention. And that creates a question in her mind. Why doesn't he need this? That question is more powerful than any compliment you could ever give. Many men fear pulling back because they think, what if she forgets about me? If that happens, it means there was never a solid foundation, and chasing would never have saved it anyway. But when you pull back the right way, with calm, dignity, and consistency, you don't disappear. You simply stop giving your value away for free. When you do that, she starts filling in the blanks herself. As you continue, you'll learn a few key shifts that change how women experience you emotionally. These aren't tricks or lines. They're rooted in mindset, boundaries, and behavior. And when you apply them, something interesting happens. Even women who once overlooked you begin to rethink their assumptions, not because you demanded attention, but because you stopped chasing it. If you've ever felt friend-zoned, ignored, or taken for granted, this isn't about becoming colder. It's about becoming centered. Because a man who is centered doesn't chase interest. He creates a presence that's noticed and an absence that's felt. And once you understand that difference, everything changes. 1. Stop being overavailable. Why space creates desire. One of the most overlooked yet powerful shifts a man can make when a woman isn't interested is deceptively simple. Stop being over-available, because space is not absence. Space is invitation, and desire grows in the quiet moments where anticipation has room to breathe. Many men, especially good-hearted men, fall into the same trap without realizing it. They become emotionally available at all hours, digitally present at every ping, physically ready at every hint, and endlessly responsive without pause or filter. They believe availability proves reliability, kindness, and emotional intelligence, and in long-term commitment that can be true. But at the beginning, attraction does not rise from access, it rises from contrast. Be honest with yourself. When everything is given freely, it loses its edge. When every message is answered instantly, when every plan is adjusted to fit her schedule, when every opinion is softened to match hers, curiosity fades quietly. That is not cruelty. That is human nature. Predictability feels safe, but safety alone does not spark longing. And without longing, there is nothing to miss. A woman doesn't miss what she already has unlimited access to, and when your presence becomes constant, it slowly turns into background noise instead of a signal her mind tunes into. Don't confuse this with playing games. Don't disappear. Don't punish silence with silence. Don't act distant to provoke anxiety. That is not confidence. That is uncertainty wearing a costume. What matters here is controlled availability, the art of choosing when and how you show up instead of reacting on impulse. You must understand this clearly. Attraction does not grow from how much of you she can reach. It grows from how she feels when access to you is intentional and not automatic. This is one of the most misunderstood psychology tricks men struggle with because it feels counterintuitive at first, yet it aligns perfectly with female psychology and the way emotional value is formed. Think of it like this. When something valuable is always on the table, the mind slowly treats it as ordinary. But when access is measured, deliberate, and earned, the mind assigns meaning to it. That is not manipulation. That is how humans perceive worth. When you are always available, tension dissolves. And tension, when healthy and calm, is what keeps emotional engagement alive. Remove tension and interest often follows it out the door. That is why pulling back calmly, without resentment or drama, creates impact. It allows space for reflection. It allows imagination to work. It gives her nervous system room to register your absence without feeling chased or pressured. Instead of asking, "How do I get her attention?" ask something more powerful. Where am I overgiving my attention? Because attention is currency. Spend it wisely. When you give it away without discretion, its value drops, and people without malice respond accordingly. Be clear about this as well. This is not about pretending to be busy. It is about actually having a life that matters to you. Men who are missed are not counting minutes or rehearsing delays. They are focused. They are grounded. They are invested in their work, their growth, their health, their friendships, their sense of direction. Their day does not stop moving because one message hasn't arrived yet. And women feel that stability immediately. A man with options is not defined by other women. He is defined by priorities, purpose, momentum. That energy says, "I enjoy you, but I don't need you to feel whole." And that message lands deeply without ever being spoken. This is where many men quietly sabotage themselves. When a woman pulls back, they lean forward. When she takes longer to reply, they rush. When she seems unsure, they over-explain, over-clarify, over-invest. Don't do that. Those reactions are rooted in fear, and fear travels faster than words, even through a screen. It creates pressure without intention, and pressure suffocates attraction. Instead, the man who creates space does so naturally, not to test her, not to provoke a response, but because his life does not pause for uncertainty. He continues forward calmly. He lets silence do some of the work, and silence, when it comes from confidence, is not rejection. It is restraint, and restraint communicates self-respect. Be selective, not distant. Show up when it matters. Engage with intention. Listen without trying to win approval. And if interest is not returned, Walk away emotionally unchanged. That balance is what makes you memorable. This is how to fall in love without forcing it. This is how attraction grows without pressure. This is how psychology tricks rooted in self-control and emotional steadiness align with female psychology in a way that feels natural rather than forced. When you stop flooding the space with your presence, you allow desire to find its own way back to you. That is how to fall in love without chasing it. That is how to fall in love while still respecting yourself. And that is how simple awareness, applied consistently, becomes one of the most effective psychology tricks a man can ever master. 2. Stop seeking validation. Why needing approval quietly pushes her away. Most men misunderstand this part completely. They think attraction is lost because of a bad joke, a mistimed text, or saying the wrong thing at the wrong moment. That's rarely the case. The real issue shows up much earlier and much quieter. It appears the moment you need her response to feel okay. You know the feeling. You reread the message 3 times before sending it. You hesitate, edit, soften, and rephrase. You send it, then wait. You check your phone again and again. Her reply or her silence starts to decide how your evening feels. That is the moment attraction begins to slip, not because you did something wrong, but because you handed your emotional balance to someone you barely know. Don't underestimate how clearly this is felt. Women may not articulate it, but they sense it immediately. When your mood depends on her reaction, the dynamic shifts. Needing validation does not signal care. It signals emotional dependence. And emotional dependence feels heavy to carry. Women don't pull away because a man feels deeply. They pull away because they feel responsible for how a man feels. That pressure builds quietly, then distance follows. That is how interest fades without conflict, without drama, without explanation. When you seek validation, you place her above you without realizing it. Her opinion becomes the measuring stick for your worth. Her attention becomes the reward you chase. And the moment she feels placed above you, desire weakens. Attraction requires balance, always has, always will. This is where many men get confused. They believe admiration creates closeness, but admiration without self-respect creates imbalance, and imbalance dissolves attraction. Be clear about this. Validation seeking is rooted in fear, fear of losing her, fear of not being enough, fear of being replaced, fear of saying the wrong thing. Fear is felt before it is heard, and fear is not appealing. It tightens your words. It shrinks your presence. It turns connection into performance. You start softening your opinions. You laugh a little too quickly. You over-explain your jokes to make sure they land. You apologize when nothing was wrong. Slowly, subtly, you stop being yourself. And when you stop being yourself, there is nothing real left for her to connect to. Don't do that. Don't edit your personality into something safer. Don't audition for approval. Attraction is not a job interview. There is no panel deciding if you pass. The moment you try to prove your worth, you imply that it is questionable, and that implication lingers, even if nothing is said out loud. Understand this distinction clearly. The men women miss are not the ones who try hardest. They are not the ones who explain themselves best. They are not the ones who adjust endlessly to avoid disapproval. They are the men who are already settled in who they are, whether approval comes or not. That calm self-acceptance is deeply noticeable. It creates ease. It creates safety without pressure. It creates room for curiosity. When you stop seeking validation, something powerful happens internally first. Your energy shifts. You speak without scanning her face for feedback. You share without waiting for confirmation. You enjoy the interaction without trying to control where it goes. You become present instead of strategic. That grounded presence is what people describe when they talk about a high-value man. Not arrogance, not indifference, but emotional self-sufficiency. A man who knows he is okay either way. That is the foundation of attraction. That is how you naturally attract women without chasing reactions. Letting go of validation does not mean becoming distant, rude, or emotionally closed. That misunderstanding keeps many men stuck. This is not about shutting down. It is about refusing to outsource your self-worth. Your value does not rise or fall based on someone's response time. Your confidence does not need to be approved. You can care without clinging. You can enjoy without attaching. You can express interest without surrendering your center. A man who doesn't need validation doesn't chase interest. He doesn't monitor every signal. He doesn't react impulsively to uncertainty. He creates a presence that feels solid, predictable in character, not in behavior, calm, not needy. This presence is often described as masculine energy, not because it dominates, but because it is grounded. It stands on its own. It does not lean for support, and that steadiness invites desire far more than constant reassurance ever could. Consider how this plays out in real moments. She takes longer to respond. Don't rush to fill the silence. Don't send a follow-up disguised as humor. Be still. Stay engaged with your life. Silence does not mean rejection. Often it means nothing at all. But when you panic, you turn neutral space into pressure. Be patient, be occupied, be composed. When she disagrees with you, don't retreat. Don't rush to align. Be respectful, but be honest. That is attractive. When a conversation flows, enjoy it fully. When it doesn't, don't force it. Walk away emotionally intact. That ability to remain unchanged by outcomes is rare, and rarity creates value. This is why a high-value man is not defined by who wants him, but by how he relates to himself when uncertainty appears. There is a deeper truth here that many men don't want to face. Seeking validation is exhausting, not just for her, but for you. It turns connection into work. It keeps your nervous system on edge. You are constantly adjusting, checking, correcting. Let that go. Be clear. Be steady. Be expressive without expectation. That is not indifference. That is maturity. That is confidence without performance. And it is deeply aligned with masculine energy that attracts rather than chases. When you stop asking, "Did I do that right?" you start experiencing interactions instead of managing them. You laugh more naturally. You listen more deeply. You become more present. Presence is felt immediately, and presence is magnetic. Remember this: attraction grows when a woman feels free, not responsible. It grows when she senses choice, not obligation. It grows when she feels invited, not needed. Don't need her interest to feel whole. Don't let approval become oxygen. Be complete first. That completeness is what allows desire to form organically. That is how men are missed, not because they demanded attention, but because their absence was noticeable. Not because they chased validation, but because their presence felt secure. That is how you attract women without strategy, without manipulation, without pressure. And that is why letting go of validation is not a loss. It is a return to yourself. And if this hit home for you, take action right now. Drop this comment below and mean it. I don't chase approval. I stand in my value. Like this video, subscribe for more sharp, grounded wisdom, and remind yourself every day: confidence isn't proven, it's lived. 3. Build a life. She can feel, not just one she can see. Most men say they want to be missed, but very few are willing to become memorable, and that single misunderstanding is why so many men feel invisible in modern dating. You cannot manufacture longing without substance. You cannot trigger emotional gravity without building a life that carries weight. And you cannot expect a woman to feel absence if your presence never stood for anything in the first place. As Marcus Aurelius reminded us, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. This applies directly here because a man who is missed does not chase attention. He generates impact, not through noise, not through performance, but through direction, structure, and forward motion that can be felt even in silence. This is where psychology becomes simple and brutal. If your days are spent waiting for messages, checking notifications, scrolling aimlessly, reacting emotionally, complaining about circumstances, and outsourcing your sense of worth to someone else's interest, then when you disappear, nothing changes. There is no gap, no tension, no emotional echo, only relief or indifference. Women feel this instinctively. They feel whether a man is moving or drifting, whether his life has momentum or stagnation, whether he is building something real or merely hoping to be chosen. Hope is not attractive, Direction is. Attraction does not grow from availability. It grows from gravity. And gravity is created when a man has a life that pulls inward rather than reaching outward. A life with routines, standards, goals, and discipline that exist regardless of who is watching. Being nice is common. Being consistent is expected. Being available is easy. Being grounded is rare, and rarity creates value. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." That is the foundation of making any woman miss you. Women are not drawn to words, promises, or potential alone. They are drawn to evidence of direction, to the quiet confidence that comes from self-respect practiced daily, to the presence that forms when a man honors his time, his body, his craft, and his principles. When you live this way, you stop trying to be interesting to women and start being deeply interested in your own path. Paradoxically, that is when women begin to lean in, because your attention is no longer cheap, your energy is no longer reactive, and your absence now creates a noticeable gap. Not because you withdrew to provoke emotion, but because your life was adding something meaningful to the space you occupied. This is Stoicism win in action, not coldness, not detachment, but emotional self-mastery. An iron mind that does not beg to be valued, but lives in a way that commands respect without asking for it. As Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." Freedom is the most magnetic quality a man can embody. Freedom from validation seeking, freedom from over-explaining, freedom from the fear of being forgotten. Here is the hard truth most men avoid. You cannot shortcut substance. You cannot fake depth. You cannot bypass the work of building a life that feels solid from the inside out. Women sense congruence. They sense when your words align with your habits, when your confidence is rooted in repetition rather than fantasy, when your calm comes from order rather than avoidance. This matters deeply in modern life, where distractions are endless, attention is fragmented, and most men are mentally scattered. The man who stands out today is not the loudest or the flashiest, but the one who is centered, consistent, and progressing. The one who wakes with intention, trains his body, sharpens his mind, advances his mission, and protects his standards. Not because someone is watching, but because that is who he decided to be. Old Stoic wisdom teaches that character is destiny, and destiny is built in private. When a woman encounters a man whose life has structure, whose schedule reflects priorities, whose actions reveal self-respect, she feels safe, intrigued, and challenged in the best way. She knows his presence is a choice, not a dependency. His absence now carries emotional weight because something real is missing, not just attention, not just validation, but leadership, stability, and direction. This is why men who are missed never announce their value. They never explain themselves endlessly. They never try to convince. Their life speaks for them. Their routines speak for them. Their progress speaks for them. Silence becomes powerful when it is backed by substance, not strategy. This is the mindset shift that changes everything. Stop asking how to make a woman miss you. Start asking whether your life is worth missing. Longing is a response, not a tactic. Men who understand this stop chasing outcomes and start mastering inputs, daily habits, disciplined routines, clear goals, firm boundaries. Over time, this creates presence. Presence creates memory. Memory creates longing. Stoicism win is not about emotional suppression. It is about emotional control, choosing actions over reactions, purpose over panic, direction over desperation. When you live this way, you no longer fear being forgotten because you know that anyone who steps into your world feels the difference immediately. And when you step out, they feel it even more. As Marcus Aurelius said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, and the quality of your life depends upon the quality of your structure." Structure is attractive. Structure is calming. Structure is memorable. Develop an iron mind that does not wobble with every message or mood. Build a life that moves forward whether or not anyone applauds. Understand this final truth. Women do not miss men who try to be missed. They miss men who are going somewhere. When your life has direction, discipline, and depth, missing you becomes inevitable. Gravity always pulls. Silence always speaks. Substance always leaves an imprint. 4. Master emotional self-control. Why calm confidence is addictive. 4. Master emotional self-control. Because calm confidence is not loud. It does not chase. It does not argue. It does not beg to be understood. It simply stands there, steady and unmovable, and that is precisely why it becomes unforgettable. When a man reacts emotionally to every little thing, every delayed text, every vague reply, every shift in tone, he unknowingly hands over his balance. And once balance is gone, attraction quietly slips away. Not with drama, not with conflict, but with a slow loss of interest that feels confusing and unfair, yet it is entirely predictable through female psychology. Predictability born from emotional reactivity removes mystery, removes tension, removes the sense that there is something deeper to discover. So don't react to everything. Don't explain yourself endlessly. Don't rush to fix silence. Be composed, be measured, be centered. Because emotional steadiness does two powerful things at once. It creates intrigue and it creates safety. And the human mind, especially the emotional mind, is drawn to both. This is not manipulation. This is understanding how people respond to presence. Because when you remain calm while others sway, you become a reference point, a place where emotions can land without chaos. And women do not miss emotional noise. They do not long for uncertainty wrapped in anxiety. They miss emotional grounding. They miss how they felt when everything around them slowed down just by being near you. That is why a man who does not get shaken by moods, who does not mirror emotional swings, who does not try to win approval in every interaction, becomes deeply magnetic without trying. Because he communicates something powerful without words. I am fine within myself. And that message travels straight to the subconscious. This is where psychology tricks are often misunderstood, because the real influence does not come from clever lines or strategic delays. It comes from inner regulation, from the ability to feel something without immediately acting on it. And when you master that, you stop chasing reactions and start creating presence. And presence is rare, presence is felt, presence lingers. So don't overtext. Don't demand clarity too soon. Don't fill every gap with reassurance. Be patient, be slow, be intentional. Because calm confidence is not about pretending not to care. It is about caring without losing yourself. And that distinction changes everything. Because the moment a woman senses that your emotional state depends on her behavior, pressure appears. And pressure suffocates curiosity. But when she senses that you are emotionally whole, whether she leans in or steps back, curiosity grows because now there is space. And in that space, feelings expand. This is one of the most overlooked aspects of how to fall in love. Because love does not grow in tight fists. It grows in open hands. And emotional self-control is what keeps your hands open, steady, inviting, not grabbing, not trembling, just there. And the beauty of this is that it works even when she is not initially interested, because interest is not logical, it is emotional. And emotions respond to contrast. When she expects urgency and receives calm, when she expects reaction and receives poise. Something inside her pauses, something asks a quiet question, and that question becomes thought, and thought becomes memory, and memory becomes missing you. Not because you were loud, not because you tried harder than everyone else, but because you were different in a way that felt good. And this is where psychology tricks become ethical tools. Tools of self-mastery rather than control. Because the goal is not to make someone feel confused. The goal is to make them feel at ease. And ease is addictive in a restless world. So don't rush emotional intimacy. Don't spill everything at once. Don't let anxiety drive your behavior. Be grounded. Be consistent. Be calm even when outcomes are uncertain, because uncertainty handled with grace is attractive, and certainty forced through emotion is exhausting. And women sense that difference instantly through female psychology long before words catch up, because emotions speak faster than logic, And when your emotions are regulated, they send a signal of reliability, depth, and quiet strength. And that signal lingers long after the conversation ends, long after the phone is put down, long after the date is over. Because she does not remember everything you said, but she remembers how she felt around you. And if she felt calm, seen, unpressured, and steady, she will think of you when things get loud elsewhere. She will miss the way her nervous system relaxed in your presence, and that is not something she can easily replace. So master your reactions, master your tone, master your timing. Because emotional self-control is not suppression, it is refinement. It is choosing when to speak, when to wait, when to act, and when to simply let things unfold. And when you do that, you stop trying to be impressive and start being impactful. And impact is what stays. This is how to fall in love without forcing it. This is how attraction grows in silence. This is how psychology tricks align with integrity. Because the strongest move you can make is not reacting when you don't need to, not proving when you are already enough, not chasing when your presence already invites return. And once you embody that, once emotional steadiness becomes your default, you won't need to ask why she misses you, because the answer will be simple. She misses how she feels when you are calm, centered, and fully yourself. And that is something the mind remembers, the heart seeks, and the soul quietly pulls toward again and again. Because calm confidence is not flashy. It is not urgent. It does not demand attention, yet it commands it, and that is why it works. That is why it lasts, and that is why mastering emotional self-control is not just one of the most effective psychology tricks. It is one of the most honest, powerful, and enduring paths to attraction rooted deeply in female psychology and the timeless principles of how to fall in love. 5. Create unpredictability. Why novelty keeps her thinking about you. 5. Create unpredictability. Because novelty is not about playing games, it is about staying alive in her mind. Predictable men fade quickly from a woman's thoughts, not because they are bad men, not because they lack kindness or effort, but because the human brain is not designed to linger on what it already understands. Familiarity without variation becomes background noise. That is why routine, when it is too rigid, quietly dulls attraction. When your behavior, your conversations, and your emotional rhythm are always the same, her subconscious stops leaning forward. It relaxes too much. And when curiosity dies, attention follows. That is why you must understand this clearly. Unpredictability is not chaos. It is contrast. It is movement. It is the gentle refusal to be fully figured out. Be steady in your values, yes, but flexible in your expression. That is what a high-value man understands instinctively. He does not change who he is to attract women, but he allows different sides of himself to breathe. Sometimes you are thoughtful and deep. Sometimes you are light and playful. Sometimes you step back and let silence speak. These small shifts do something powerful inside her mind. They interrupt patterns. They wake curiosity. What the mind cannot fully predict, it keeps returning to. That is not manipulation. That is psychology. Think about this carefully. A song you hear once might be pleasant, but a song with variation, with unexpected pauses, with moments that surprise you, is the one that stays in your head. Attraction works the same way. When every interaction follows the same script, the same tone, the same emotional temperature, there is nothing for her mind to chew on later. But when there is novelty, when there is contrast, her thoughts circle back without effort. Why did he say that? Why did he pull back just then? Why did I feel different around him today? Don't over-explain. Don't rush to clarify every silence. Be comfortable letting moments breathe. That is not distance, that is confidence. And confidence expressed through restraint is a form of masculine energy that feels grounded, not forced. A man who can be present without being predictable sends a subtle signal. I am not trying to manage your emotions. I trust myself. That trust is felt, and it is attractive. You must understand that unpredictability does not mean being inconsistent in character. It means being inconsistent in delivery. Your principles stay firm. Your self-respect stays intact, but your emotional texture shifts. Sometimes you lead the conversation. Sometimes you listen more than you speak. Sometimes you surprise her with depth she did not expect. Other times you keep things simple and light. This rhythm keeps her emotionally engaged because she cannot place you neatly into a box. The brain dislikes unfinished stories. It wants closure. When it does not get it, it revisits the story again and again. This is one of the most overlooked ways to attract women, especially for men who have spent years being reliable but invisible. Reliability without intrigue is comfort, not desire. Don't remove comfort, add intrigue. That is the balance. Be careful here. Unpredictability is not about disappearing suddenly or acting cold without reason. That confuses rather than attracts. Instead, it is about not being overly available emotionally at all times. It is about having a full life that naturally creates variation. Some days you are fully engaged because you choose to be. Other days you are focused elsewhere because your world is rich. That richness is felt. A high-value man does not announce his worth. He demonstrates it through how he allocates his time and attention. When she senses that your life does not revolve around her reactions, her interest grows. Not because she feels chased, but because she feels invited. That invitation feels safer and more exciting at the same time. Small shifts matter more than grand gestures. Change the pace of your communication, change the depth, change the energy. One day you share a meaningful story from your past. Another day you keep things playful and brief. One day you initiate. Another day you allow space. These contrasts stimulate curiosity because they break linear expectation. The masculine energy here is calm, not performative. It does not seek approval. It allows interest to come forward naturally. That is why unpredictability works even when she is not initially interested. Interest is not a decision. It is a response, and responses are shaped by emotional stimulation, not logic. Don't explain your every move. Don't narrate your intentions. Don't try to control how you are perceived. Be comfortable being partially misunderstood. That is uncomfortable for men who are used to proving their reliability. But mystery is not dishonesty. It is restraint. It is letting her discover instead of being told. And discovery creates ownership. When she connects the dots herself, the feeling is stronger. That is how attraction roots itself quietly and deeply. This is how you attract women without chasing. This is how presence replaces pressure. A predictable man answers every message the same way, at the same speed, with the same emotional tone. An unpredictable man responds with intention, sometimes quickly, sometimes later, not to create anxiety, but because his life genuinely has texture. That texture communicates abundance, and abundance is attractive because it signals choice. A man who has options moves differently. He is not rushed. He is not reactive. He is grounded in himself. That grounding is masculine energy in its healthiest form, calm, flexible, unforced. Be clear about this. Unpredictability is not about withholding affection. It is about varying expression. Affection delivered the same way every time loses impact. Affection delivered with presence and timing lands deeper. Be warm, then be neutral. Be expressive, then be quiet. These shifts keep emotional engagement alive. That is why novelty keeps her thinking about you long after the interaction ends. Her mind replays moments not because they were dramatic, but because they were different. And difference is memorable. You must also remember that unpredictability works best when paired with consistency of values. Be honest, be respectful, be self-directed. Those are non-negotiable. But within that framework, allow yourself to be human, layered, and dynamic. Men who believe they must always show the same side often become invisible. Men who allow variation become interesting. That interest grows into anticipation. Anticipation grows into missing you. And missing you is the emotional bridge that turns curiosity into desire. Don't try to be impressive all the time. Be real in different ways. That is far more compelling. One day your strength shows through silence. Another day through humor. Another day through insight. This range signals maturity. It signals experience. It signals that you are not performing a role. You are living a life, and that life has movement. Women are drawn to movement because it suggests growth. Stagnation feels safe but dull. Movement feels alive. This is why creating unpredictability is not a trick. It is a byproduct of self-respect. When you respect your own rhythm, you stop trying to be constantly available. When you stop trying, attraction has room to grow. This is how a high-value man naturally attracts women. Not through control, not through intensity, but through presence that is steady, layered, and slightly out of reach. That balance keeps the mind engaged, and what the mind keeps returning to, the heart eventually follows. So be intentional, be varied, be grounded. Don't flatten yourself into a routine just to be liked. Don't fear silence. Don't fear space. Use them wisely. That is how novelty works without games. That is how masculine energy expresses itself without force. That is how you attract women who feel curious, calm, and emotionally alive around you. And that is why unpredictability, when rooted in self-mastery, keeps her thinking about you long after you are gone. 6. Communicate less, but say more. Why presence matters more than words. 6. Communicate less, but say more, because presence outperforms noise every single time. This is not a trick. It is a law of human psychology, proven in modern life and echoed by old Stoic wisdom for thousands of years. Restraint was never weakness. Silence was never absence. It was control. It was intention. It was power in its cleanest form. For a man between 35 and 70 who has lived long enough to know that chasing drains value while composure creates gravity, this principle becomes a weapon you carry calmly, not something you explain or announce. Over-explaining, constant messaging, and emotional monologues do not build connection. They dissolve it. They flood the moment until nothing stands out. As Seneca warned, nature hath given men one tongue but two ears, that we may hear from others twice as much as we speak. Attention is currency. Mystery is interest. When you communicate less but say more, you force the other person to lean in, to fill the silence with thought, to replay your words long after the conversation ends. This is why presence matters more than words, because presence is felt before it is understood. In a world where everyone is always available, always typing, always reacting, the man who pauses, who chooses his words like tools instead of spilling them like sand, stands apart instantly. Not because he tries to impress, but because he does not need to. This is where modern psychology aligns perfectly with Stoicism when thinking, because attraction is not created by persuasion. It is created by space, contrast, and emotional residue. That lingering echo stays after you leave. Short, meaningful interactions leave that residue. They leave unanswered curiosity. They leave a sense of, there is more here. That is what makes someone miss you. Not effort, not explanation, not availability. Impact. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. In modern terms, stop talking about how you feel. Stop explaining your intentions. Stop narrating your emotions. Start embodying calm certainty. When you speak with intention instead of volume, your words carry weight. When your words carry weight, they are replayed, analyzed, remembered. Silence, used correctly, becomes louder than constant talking, because silence invites imagination, and imagination is where attachment grows. This is not manipulation. It is alignment with how the human mind works. The brain values what it must work to understand, not what is handed to it endlessly. That is why men who text less but with clarity, who speak briefly but with grounded confidence, who exit conversations without dragging them out, are remembered more than men who overshare and linger. In modern life, where attention is fragmented and validation is cheap, restraint signals self-respect, and self-respect is magnetic. As Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Decide to be a man whose presence is felt, not a man who fills silence out of discomfort. Discomfort is the teacher. Mastering it builds an iron mind. An iron mind does not chase reactions. It does not fear pauses. It does not confuse silence with loss. When you carry an iron mind, your calm becomes contagious. Your stillness becomes grounding. People, including women who initially showed no interest, begin to feel something they cannot name, a pull that does not come from words, but from energy, composure, and the unspoken signal that you are complete without needing their response. That is where missing begins. Missing is not about absence alone, it is about contrast. Contrast between how someone feels when you are there and how the space feels when you are gone. If you overcommunicate, there is no contrast, no gap, no room for thought. When you step back at the right moment, when you end the conversation while the energy is still rising, when you leave before explaining everything, you allow the mind to do the work for you. Modern behavioral psychology confirms this. Intermittent presence strengthens emotional imprinting far more than constant availability. The same principle that makes a song more powerful when it fades out instead of blasting endlessly. Old Stoic wisdom emphasized moderation in all things because moderation sharpens impact. In relationships, less truly becomes more, not as a tactic but as a way of life. Discipline is attractive because it signals stability. Stability signals safety. Safety opens emotional doors. You do not announce this. You demonstrate it through how you communicate, how you pause, how you listen, how you let silence sit without rushing to fill it. Silence is not empty, it is charged. When you hold it calmly, you show leadership of the moment without force. This is why repeating yourself is unnecessary, why explaining your value is counterproductive, and why letting actions and tone speak is the ultimate Stoicism win approach. Stoicism was never about suppressing emotion. It was about mastering response. Response includes knowing when not to respond, when not to text back immediately, when not to elaborate, when not to chase clarity that has not been requested. In modern life, where men are often told to express everything instantly, restraint feels countercultural. That is exactly why it works. What is rare is valued. What is disciplined is respected. When you internalize this, you stop asking, "How do I make her miss me?" and start living in a way that makes your presence distinct. Distinction creates memory. Memory creates longing. Longing grows in silence, not noise. Mark Twain said it best: "The right word may be effective, but no word was ever as effective as a rightly timed pause." That pause is where your power lives. That pause is where attraction breathes. That pause is where an iron mind separates itself from impulse. Practice this daily, not just with women, but with life, conversations, conflict, and work. You begin to master life itself, because mastery is not control over others, it is control over self. Control over self creates freedom, and freedom is felt instantly. Communicating less but saying more is not a dating trick. It is a personal philosophy, a way of moving through the world with clarity, precision, and quiet confidence, rooted in old Stoic wisdom, reinforced by modern psychology, and proven by lived experience. When you adopt it fully, you do not convince anyone of your value. You let them discover it in the silence you leave behind, in the calm you carry, in the space you respect. That is when missing becomes inevitable, not because you tried, but because you lived correctly. Restraint over noise, intention over impulse, presence over words. This choice, repeated daily, builds an iron mind, creates a stoicism win life, and positions you as a man who does not chase attention, but commands respect by how he shows up and how he knows when to step back. Hey, my friend, if you've made it this far, I want you to hear this clearly. A woman missing you is not magic, and it's not manipulation. It's about who you are when no one is watching. When you stop running after attention, stop proving yourself, and start standing firmly in your own life, something changes. You become calm, you become grounded, and that energy is unforgettable. Don't try to be missed. Live in a way that leaves a mark. Build your purpose, protect your time, and walk away with dignity when needed. The right people don't miss noise. They miss strength, presence, and self-respect. So my honest advice to you is this: focus on becoming a man you respect first. When you do that, Being missed is no longer a question. It becomes a natural result. Stay strong, stay steady, and keep moving forward.